Sorry about that, guys. We're using a free Wi-Fi.
With which our position has been lately received?
Right on, buddy. Yeah.
It is not.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah.
Family's starting to show up down here. The Occupy family is in force.
Suffer not yourselves to be betrayed by a kiss. Ask yourselves how this gracious reception of our petition comports with these warlike preparations which cover our waters and darken our lands. Are fleets and armies necessary to a work of love and reconciliation? Have we shown ourselves so unwilling to be reconciled that force must be called to win back our love? Let us not deceive ourselves. These are the implements of war and subjugation, the last arguments to which kings resort. I ask, gentlemen, what means this martial array, if its purpose be not to force us into submission? Patrick Henry is here speaking about the state, the power of our young emerging nation when we were coping with problems of banking and the oppression of people who we had invited over here, known as slaves, sharecroppers, the immigrants that founded our nation, the immigrants whom we should honor for their contribution to our consumption. It may be made in China, but it's given and sold in America. And it's little American kids that are going to be happy 2 days from now, as kids the world over toil in sweatshops to buy gadgets and gizmos for little kids who don't even know the meaning of their own age. Patrick Henry was talking about the crisis that had hit America at the time. British ministry and the King George have been subjecting the people of the colonies to excessive taxes and police intervention. Have we held this subject up in every light of which it is capable? But it has all been in vain. Shall we resort to petition and humble supplication? What terms shall we find which have not already been exhausted? Let us not, I beseech you, deceive ourselves any longer. We have done everything that could be done to avert the storm which is now coming. We have petitioned, we have remonstrated, we have supplicated, we have prostrated ourselves before the throne and have implored its interposition to arrest the tyrannical hands of ministry and parliament. Patrick Henry was speaking at the time of the British ministry and the monarchy of King George, but this applies today, my friends, as well as it ever has. Our petitions have been slighted. Our remonstrances have produced an additional violence and insult. Our supplications have been disregarded. We have been spurned with contempt from the foot of the throne. In vain, after these things, may we hope to indulge a fond hope of peace and reconciliation. There is no longer any room for hope. Patrick Henry was speaking over 200 years ago about issues that still affect the United States today. The difference is, back then, the people had power because there was very little intervention from the state in their daily lives. Today it's much different. The state invades every pocket of our lives. Our pocketbooks are empty pockets. If we wish to be free, if we mean to preserve and violate those inestimable privileges for which we have so long been contending, if we mean not basely to abandon the noble struggle in which we have been so long engaged, and which we have pledged ourselves never to abandon, we will never abandon it until the glorious object of our contest shall be attained. We must fight. I repeat, we must fight. An appeal to arms and to the God of hosts is all that is left us. They tell us that we are weak, unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be next week or next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed and when a British guard shall be stationed in every house? Shall we gather strength by irresolution and inaction? Shall we acquire the means of effectual resistance by lying on our backs and hugging the delusive phantom of hope until our enemies shall have us bound hand and foot? We are not weak. If we make a proper use of the means by which God and nature have placed in our power, 3 millions of people armed in the holy cause of liberty and in such a country as that which we possess are invincible by any force which our enemy can muster against us. And we shall not fight our battles alone. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations and who will rise up friends to fight our battles with us. The battle is not to the strong alone. It is to the vigilant, the active, the brave. Besides, we have no election. If we were base enough to desire it, it is now too late to retire from the contest. There is no retreat but into submission and slavery. Our chains are forged. Their clanking may be heard on the plains of Ferguson. I have paraphrased from Patrick Henry's great speech because in 1776 it was the Boston Massacre. In 2014 it's the Ferguson incident. In 1972 it was Kent State. How many of these injustices are we going to suffer because we are basically beholden to the Federal Reserve, money, imperialism? The war is inevitable, and let it come. It is in vain to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war has actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of arms. Our brethren are already in the fire. Why do we stand here idle? What is it the gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains? Forbid it, God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Patrick Henry, 1775.
Give me liberty.
A little less than 200 years later, Patrick Henry's
Don't
ideas
tread
were
on me,
grounded
man.
under the fruit
Don't
of the
tread
Federal
on
Reserve
me.
ground into the dustbin of history by the apathy of modern times. Back then, people grew their own food. They knew what their neighbors were doing, but they didn't have to spy on them. Religious fanatics were running amok around the world. Indigenous people were being crushed. Robber barons and highwaymen, known as the criminal class, preyed upon the citizenry. But they stood together in their communities. They had common purpose, the sustainability of their environment and their children. When capitalism and agriculture bound themselves together, when both the people and the land became subjects of the state, we lost the power to decide for ourselves. When banking erupted in the United States, it was a far cry from the Federal Reserve system we have today. It was a mercantile system. States issued their own money. People were into barter and trade and determining the value of their productive labor. Now it's all predetermined, pre-codified, templated, slotted, pre-formatted. You download that program into your brain every day with what you eat and what you watch on TV. We're out here as a resistance movement. It is not a violent resistance movement. It is not a trend towards insurrection. as our great Patrick Henry had suggested we do in times like this. But the modern human being, Homo sapiens prostatus, the ones who are lying around being deadbeats, are they any better or worse than the ones who are the real parasites? The ones who are in these ivory towers determining your debt? The ones who are enslaving your children to a life term of debt? Oh, that reminds me, I met a really cool cop the other night who was ridden with debt. Because the only way he could afford to go to law school to fight for people was to become a cop and beat up people. Earlier this morning I spoke about interconnectivity, the unity of nature, the way our universe is constructed, perhaps not designed, but it is built. It is built upon natural laws. Man-made laws, laws that engender things like corporate personhood, Federal Reserve banking systems, free market economies where nobody is really free, except the robber barons and industrialists who set up our financial systems, who are the very same arms and weapons manufacturers, who are the very same people who control our food supply, pesticides.
Oh my god, I was so freaking out.
Even our commercial transportation. What does it have to do with a black kid getting gunned down in St. Louis? What does it have to do with a 70-year-old woman in New Jersey getting her home taken away, as my friend had pointed out earlier? So much injustice will continue as long as we refuse to stand up and fight back. And we fight back not with force of arms like the state. We don't fight back with vitriolic anger and hate like the establishment.
No!
We struggle and resist these petty tyrannies with the force of our hearts, the strength of our voices, the power of our numbers. And in this country where everything is so big and beautiful and spread out, just like its people, we're beautiful, but we're spread thin. Our movement needs to grow so that it can continue to help our country move forward and reclaim our lost position of honor. Join us. We're here today. It is a birthday today. It's a birthday. The Federal Reserve, born on Jekyll Island on this day in 1913. On the eve of World War I, which the Federal Reserve and those very same industrialists would finance the war to end all wars. And also, as a veteran, I think it's interesting to note that on Christmas Eve in 1917, the belligerents in the political action known as warfare decided to stop fighting each other, to disregard the illegal orders of their superiors, and to have a little game of football in no man's land. But they didn't keep running away into the soccer field. They didn't run away into no man's land. They didn't run away from the war. They went back. And our kids today have to go back. It's huge, folks. It's already happening. We love you and we want to play.
And that's it for now. We'll be back. Thanks for tuning in. Peace and solidarity from the Federal Reserve Bank, Occupy San Francisco.